The Grand Theft Auto series has come a very long way since the days of its inception. From the times of GTA 1's top-down 2D approach or 2D era, to GTA 3, GTA San Andreas and GTA Vice City's 3D era, and finally to the HD era which started with GTA 4 Liberty City and now it is continuing on with GTA 5. So we have come a very long way, both in terms of gameplay as well as in the terms of graphics and realism. So the obvious question right now is, what's next? What is in store for us in the next GTA game that is hopefully going to be GTA 6. Now, I know there's a lot of confusion and a lot of talk from a very long time in relation to GTA 6, especially when it is going to be released and what is going to be the base storyline or the location where it is going to be situated. But in this video, we're not going to talk about that particular topic. Rather, I just want to talk about one particular aspect of the game, which I feel is going to be pretty important moving forward, especially considering how Rockstar has sort of changed the status quo time and time again. I know that we are all very disappointed with Rockstar, especially after the terrible showcase that we had on PS5 with the quote-unquote expanded and enhanced edition of GTA 5 for the PS5 series. But irrespective of that, today let's talk about GTA 6 and what exactly could be the new content in terms of realism which can be unlocked here. So hello and welcome to Wonder WhyZ and thank you so much for joining in. Also, please note here that these are simply my thoughts and predictions and to some extent my theories in this particular regard. I'm really not claiming here that this is exactly how the game is going to be, but rather as a fan of the series, these are simply my thoughts and opinions. And in fact, I would really love to hear your opinions in this particular matter as well. If you are a creator yourself, I would even love if you make a reaction video to this and maybe give your thoughts in this particular regard. I would really love that. But with that being said, let's just jump into it. So here I'm mostly going to focus upon the HD era of GTA, so therefore let's talk about GTA 4 and GTA 5. Now, in my personal opinion, GTA 4 was the most realistic game that we have seen so far from GTA, and even though the graphics for GTA 4 are nowhere in the comparison for GTA 5, still the element of realism is quite greater, and I'm pretty sure that you all have seen the numerous comparison videos among GTA 4 and GTA 5 that are present on YouTube, but that's not saying that GTA 5 is not realistic at all. The graphics department and the realism here is absolutely insane, and sure, this is a game which was originally released in 2013 and quite a lot of time has gone by since then, and we have got many generation updates and many different legacy changes which has sort of impacted the overall playing abilities of the game. But for the most part, I can definitely say that GTA 5 is quite realistic in its approach, or at least it was in the very beginning. From the numerous minute examples that we have seen so far in the game, how clothes of the protagonists get wet when we are drowning in water, how sweat affects the characters, how spray paints and spray cans are exploding after we shoot them, and a lot of different things. I mean, sure, there are bugs in this game, so that's obvious, but in spite of all of that, there's a certain element of realism which is embedded into the graphical overlay of GTA 5. However, if we take a look at GTA 4, that was present a notch above because GTA 4 had a realism of its own. I mean, just have a look at the vehicles. Sure, people can hate it as much as they want, but GTA 4's vehicle handling system was probably the most realistic, to the point where GTA 5 had to tone it down. I mean, just have a look at the cars and the bike. The handling here and the ragdoll physics is quite weird, to the point where it is very difficult to handle as a whole, and GTA 5 had to tone it down, especially for the online content. Now, the main criminal here is the online content. The standalone story mode of GTA 5 began pretty well, with a decent establishment of the 2010s era with smartphones, with normal cars, with normal jets and normal helicopters. But with the advent of the online mode, Rockstar just put everything, like it was a free-for-all fest for everyone, and GTA 5 added literally everything into the mix. Oppressors are now just everyone's game. It's present throughout the entire map. Then we have flying cars to flying vehicles and even geostationary satellites which can just blow up you in a matter of seconds. So that's the level of realism that we have actually lost in the game, and even though it started up pretty well, but now it's just nowhere close to any sort of realism which was left in the initial days of GTA 5. And you have to understand here that I'm not talking from the point of view of graphics. The graphics on PC are still really great, despite all the bugs, they are really great, but I'm talking about the overall realism in terms of the gameplay. So the obvious question is that what is going to happen next for GTA 6? how is the gameplay, the realism for the gameplay is going to be taken a step above, because I'm pretty sure that whenever GTA 6 comes, it is definitely going to be a game changer for Rockstar. So what exactly can Rockstar do in this particular regard? Now, before addressing this, I need to talk about the obvious question here. It is in regards to online mode. Now, because of the advent of GTA 5 or GTA Online, they can't really tone down the unrealistic content or comically larger than life content of the overall GTA game. They can't just go from the mayhem of GTA Online to some random normal cars and random normal vehicles and random normal missions. Yeah, that might be possible in the story mode, but that is simply not possible for the online mode. And we know that with GTA 6 there's going to come a new online mode. So yeah, in order to keep players from buying shark cards, they need to do these extravagant stunts, and therefore I don't really think that the concept of realism can be applied to the online mode. Therefore, I would like to add a substantial distinction to the story mode of this game. So far, the story mode difficulties really don't matter that much in the overall game, other than how health and police affect the player. But here I believe that if GTA 6 wants to take a more realistic approach, then I feel like the following things could be done, wherein a system can be implemented where the normal mode and the easy mode of the game is sort of going to be similar to the online mode, and it's sort of going to be similar to the existing GTA 5's normal and easy modes. But the difference will start with the difficult mode or the hard mode, and here there's going to be a substantial amount of change if Rockstar wants to implement a new realistic approach for GTA 6. Moreover, in this context, we have to create a threshold where we have to understand from the point of view of the players that where exactly can the realism go, or what exactly is the limit of the realism to the point where the game actually does not become fun anymore. What is the correct balance between both of these things, wherein it's becoming too realistic to the point where the game is not fun anymore. And that is one of the major reasons why I'm trying to implement or trying to showcase that a level-based difficulty system is something which is aptly suitable here. Because in the normal mode or in the easy mode, you have the regular settings, you have the regular mode of GTA which you are familiar with for a very long time. The mayhem, the madness, and the absolute behemoth of GTA will be available to you, will be unlocked to you. But the difficult mode or the hard mode is where things are going to get interesting, where the realistic content of the series is actually going to shine. And I'm going to explain this from the next couple of examples, and with this I'm pretty sure that you are going to understand why I'm trying to implement a system of hardness or a system of difficulty based solutions here. Otherwise the players will be like, what exactly is the fun here if this is becoming too realistic to the point where all of these missions and all of these grinds are just too tedious for the average gamer. Therefore Rockstar will have to question themselves that how far or how realistic can GTA actually get, and therefore they will have to establish a well intricated balance system between both of these sides. What can be added here is that, and once again these are simply my personal opinion, you can agree or disagree with them, but I feel like the first and foremost thing which should be added in the concept of realism is a car mechanic. No, I'm not talking about a car mechanic who fixes the car, but rather the mechanics of the car as a whole, wherein they can add a fuel system. Now this is obviously not possible for the sole game or the online mode because of all the mayhem that it ensures, but for a standalone game, the story mode, the offline mode of the game, especially for a hard difficulty mode, I feel like the game can add the fuel mechanics which are unlockable here. And in this particular mode, essentially you are confined to a car where you have to take good care of the car obviously in order to make it perform well, but along with that you also have to keep a check upon the fuel, because there's going to be a dedicated fuel gear or fuel mechanics to the car, and once the car is out of fuel, you either need to obviously take a different car, or you will have to drive yourself to a petrol pump and you have to refuel the car using the in-game money. Now this is a mechanic which can obviously only be implemented into the story mode, just the story mode and not the online mode, because that's going to bring up a lot of different complications overall. But if Rockstar is actually aiming for more amount of realism, then this in my opinion would be a really great step ahead, and it would be in the right direction of a more realistic approach. The second one which I'm trying to say here is the weather. Now I'm not essentially saying here that they need to implement a system like Just Cause 4 where tornadoes can directly affect the player and they can be literally flown away and flung away. A more realistic weather system would be something which everyone loves to see, but that is also something which is going to be based upon the location of the game. if this is based upon Vice City, then I guess the biggest concern here would be cyclone and rain, so I hope Rockstar introduces a well thought out system for that. But the weather aspect is just not that important here, I'm just giving it out just for the sake of this particular video. The first one, which is most important in my opinion, is the fuel. The second one would be the damage taking capabilities of our protagonist. Now here, so far in the games that we have seen in GTA series, damage and death doesn't really mean a lot for the players, especially in the HD era. Now we can respawn at the hospital, and especially because of the checkpoints in a mission, we can respawn at a particular location. That is absolutely fine and sort of necessary for the longer missions, and this mechanic is something which we really appreciate while we are playing older games such as San Andreas and Vice City. But what I'm trying to say here is that if Rockstar actually wants to implement a more realistic approach and realistic system to the game, then they need to do something about damage as well as death. It needs to have a consequence. Death overall needs to have a consequence in the game, and I feel like just charging $5,000 to the player is not a good approach for it. It has to have certain meaning, wherein in this particular mode, if you are killed consecutively for a number of different times, it's going to maybe lock some of the features which are available for you. For example, you will probably not be able to properly use your weapons at this particular point in the story up until a certain time crosses by. And secondly, if we are talking about just damage and not death in itself, I hope that the region in which the protagonist takes damage affects the overall player's capabilities. Like for example, if the player takes damage upon his arms, then his shooting will be unsteady. Similarly, if the player or the protagonist takes damage upon legs, then he will be unstable while he is walking. Not to the point where it's just impossible to walk, but just in a sort of way where he's trembling. And that is obviously going to affect the overall difficulty of the game playing mode, especially when you are surrounded by enemies. It's sort of going to replicate the real life, where if you are hurt somewhere, it's going to send pain sensations, and overall it is going to affect your maneuvering abilities. Similarly, if the player is shot above his chest, he is slowly going to lose his health because, of course, the important organs are in the above part of the chest. So yeah, these kind of systems can be implemented into the overall game. Lastly, while we are talking about the weapons, I feel like in this difficulty hard mode, a player cannot simply carry unlimited amount of weapons. It has to be discreet. A player cannot just randomly carry and randomly bring out an RPG, a rocket launcher, a minigun, a sniper rifle, or anything for that matter. All the weapons that the player has to carry has to be something which is concealable in his clothes, and this is sort of going to increase the overall difficulty level of this game. And this is also going to implement one interesting system which I feel is something which Rockstar has not really dealt that much since the 3D era of the game, and that is weapon pickup points. I feel like a mafia-like system would be really great here, wherein if the player actually needs, bigger weapons like rocket launchers, RPGs, or miniguns, they have to be stored somewhere discreet, for example the trunk of a car, and the player has to approach and sought after for these cars in order to take on some of the bigger missions like robbing banks and going on to heists. So yeah, that is something which I feel is going to be very important, because just seeing a player randomly bring out a rocket launcher from his coat or his shirt is something very unrealistic, and it overall breaks the tempo of the game. So if Rockstar wants to implement some realism into the game, I feel like this would be a good approach to go by. And lastly, let's talk about police. Let's not just make them a star system. Please, let's just not make them a star system where we have to get out of the radar and just that's it, the police will never be bothered about you even if you did the biggest robbery in the planet. Let's not make a system like that. Let's have a system where the police actively seeks after you, and if a police sees you on the street after you have committed some big crime, they will actively try to search for you, they will actively try to capture you. And this has to happen throughout the game, especially after big points of the game where maybe you did a robbery, where maybe you did a heist, or something along those lines. So these are some of the elements, some of the realistic elements which I want to see being implemented into GTA 6. I know that this is not a very ideal thing because obviously this is not going to be implemented into the online mode, and especially seeing after how ridiculous the online mode has gone so far, I truly believe that this is not going to be implemented there. However, if Rockstar is trying to implement something new, then the story mode, the offline story mode is somewhere where they should, experience or experiment the overall game, and that would be a really good application of the difficulty mode of the game as well. So these are some of my thoughts in this particular regard. What do you guys think about it? Please do let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more. Again, if you are a content creator yourself, I would really love to see if you make a reaction to this particular video. With that being said, this is Wonder WhyZ. See you all on the next one. In the meantime, be sure to join the channel membership for some very cool perks and features, and join our Discord server for more. See you all on the next one.